My name's Brian, and I've been married to my wife, Jessica, for 6 years. We've got no kids, just a dog named Max who, at this point, might be the only thing keeping me sane. Jessica and I met in our late 20s, and we were one of those couples that everyone thought had it all. She's beautiful, confident, and has a way of charming anyone who crosses her path. I'm more reserved, your average nice guy who works a steady 9 to 5. She brought excitement into my life, and I thought I brought stability into hers. But over the last year, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Jessica became more guarded with her phone, always turning the screen away when I walked by. She started going out more, claiming she needed me time, or that her friends needed her. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just restless or stressed. But the late nights turned into weekends away, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I'm not proud of it, but I started keeping mental notes. How often she went out, how distant she seemed, and the way she'd snap at me over the smallest things. She accused me of being controlling if I so much as asked who she was with. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But deep down, I knew something was off. I just never imagined how bad it really was. It all came crashing down last Saturday. Jessica told me she was heading to a spa day with her friends, which sounded harmless enough. But when she walked out the door in a tiny crop top, tight jeans, and heels, I couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. Who dresses like that for a spa? Part of me wanted to let it go, but my gut wouldn't let me. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I activated the Find My feature on her phone. I'd set it up ages ago when we were on a road trip and forgot all about it. I figured she'd catch me if I checked in real time, so I waited a few hours before I opened the app. Her location pinged at an address across town, nowhere near the fancy spa she'd mentioned. I sat there staring at the screen, debating whether I should confront her or let it slide. Curiosity won. I grabbed my keys, told Max I'd be back soon, and drove over. When I pulled up, it wasn't a spa. It was a small, dingy apartment complex. My heart was pounding as I parked and sat in my car, staring at the building. I felt like an idiot, but I couldn't just leave. I decided to wait and see if she came out. I didn't have to wait long. About 20 minutes later, Jessica emerged, laughing as she stumbled out the door with not one, but 2 guys. They looked young, early 20s, maybe college students. One had shaggy brown hair, the other was tall with tattoos down his arms. They were all over each other. She kissed one guy on the mouth, then turned and did the same with the other. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, watching her flirt, giggle, and climb into their car. I stayed long enough to see them drive off, Jessica sandwiched between them in the back seat, before heading home in a daze. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't just in my head. She was cheating on me with 2 random young guys, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do next. When Jessica came home later that night, I was waiting for her. She walked in like nothing was wrong, humming some tune and tossing her purse on the counter. The audacity of her casualness sent a surge of anger through me. "Have fun at the spa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She froze for a second, but quickly recovered. "Yeah, it was relaxing." "Why?" I stood up, staring her down. "Because I know you weren't at a spa, Jessica. I know where you were, and I know what you were doing." Her face flickered, just for a moment, with something between shock and guilt. But then, she rolled her eyes and laughed. "Oh my God, Brian, are you seriously trying to play detective right now? You're being ridiculous." "I followed you," I said bluntly. Her smug expression dropped. "I saw you leave that apartment with those 2 guys. I saw you kissing them. So, cut the crap and tell me the truth." Jessica's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually admit it. But instead, she doubled down. "You're crazy," she snapped. "I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not what you're making it out to be. Those are just friends." "God, you're so insecure." "Friends," I shouted, my patience snapping. "You kiss all your friends like that? You get into cars with them like that? Don't insult my intelligence, Jessica." Her tone shifted, icy and defensive. "Fine, you want the truth? Yeah, I've been seeing them. So what? Maybe if you weren't so boring and pathetic, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. For a second, I couldn't even respond. I just stood there, stunned, as she crossed her arms and glared at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. You're blaming me for this? I finally managed to choke out. Jessica shrugged. Maybe if you put a little more effort into yourself, this wouldn't have happened. But hey, don't worry. They actually know how to make a woman feel wanted. That was it. Any lingering hope I had that this was some misunderstanding evaporated. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even pretending to be sorry. Couldn't hold back anymore. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice shaking. I've worked my ass off to give you everything. And this is how you repay me? By sneaking around with two random guys like some trashy college girl? Jessica's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare call me trashy. You're just mad because someone else is giving me what you can't. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a full-blown attack on everything I thought we had. You know what, Jessica? If I'm so boring and pathetic, then maybe you should pack your shit and go live with your little boyfriends. See how long they put up with your lies and bullshit. Oh, please, she scoffed, grabbing her phone. Like I even need this drama right now. You're just jealous because they're better than you in every way. Her arrogance, her refusal to even acknowledge what she'd done, pushed me over the edge. I stormed out of the room before I said or did something I'd regret. But as I sat alone in our guest bedroom that night, I realized I didn't regret catching her. I didn't regret confronting her. What I regretted was ever trusting her in the first place. The next morning, the house was eerily quiet. Jessica was in the kitchen scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up when I walked in, smirking like she held all the cards. So, what's the plan, Brian? Are you gonna mope around all day and feel sorry for yourself? Or are you gonna get over it? She asked, like we'd had a minor argument about laundry. I stared at her, barely able to believe her audacity. The plan? Oh, don't worry, Jessica. I have a plan. She snorted. Oh, great. Let me guess. You're gonna call a lawyer? Good luck. We both know you're too much of a pushover to actually leave me. Her words stung not because they were true, but because she believed them. For years, I had let her get away with little lies, manipulations, and insults because I thought that was just Jessica being Jessica. I thought loving her meant accepting the bad with the good. But this was unforgivable. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not going to just sit here while you humiliate me, I said. She rolled her eyes. Brian, grow up. This isn't the 1950s. People have open relationships all the time. Maybe you should try being a little less uptight. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my anger in check. Open relationships? That's what you're calling this? Newsflash, Jessica. Open relationships involve mutual consent, not sneaking around and lying to your husband. She shrugged, completely unbothered. Well, maybe I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this. Honestly, Brian, you're such a drama queen. That was the moment I realized there was no saving this marriage. Jessica wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even pretending to care about how I felt. After our conversation, I decided to take the day to clear my head. I packed a bag, grabbed Max, and drove to my buddy Nick's house. Nick and I had been best friends since college, and if anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was him. When I told Nick everything, he looked ready to explode. Are you kidding me, man? She's cheating on you with two guys and acting like you're the problem? That's insane. I know, I said, running a hand through my hair. But what do I do? Divorce feels so final. I never thought I'd end up here. Nick didn't hesitate. Brian, she's gaslighting you. She doesn't respect you, and she sure as hell doesn't deserve you. You need to leave her. Don't give her the chance to twist this around and make you feel like you're in the wrong. Hearing it from Nick gave me the clarity I needed. Jessica wasn't going to change, and staying with her would only destroy what little self-respect I had left. That night, I sent Jessica a text. I'll be staying at Nick's for a while. When I come back, we're figuring out how to divide everything up. This marriage is over. She didn't respond for hours, but when she finally did, all she wrote was, "Fine. Whatever." I returned to the house the next day to start packing my things. Jessica was lounging on the couch, scrolling TikTok like she didn't have a care in the world. She barely glanced at me when I walked in. "Are you really doing this?" she asked, her tone more annoyed than anything. "Yeah, I am," I said. "You can keep the house. I don't want it." "Wow, you're such a martyr," she said, rolling her eyes. "You know, Brian, if you weren't such a prude, we wouldn't be in this mess." I ignored her and went upstairs to grab my things. The more she talked, the more it solidified my decision. This wasn't a partnership anymore. It was a toxic mess, and I needed to get out before it dragged me down further. As I was packing, I found something that made my blood boil all over again. Stuffed in the back of our shared closet was a shoebox filled with notes, Polaroids, and little trinkets. Love letters from the two guys she'd been cheating with. One of the letters, written by Tyler, described their amazing night together in graphic detail. I couldn't stop myself. I marched downstairs and threw the box on the coffee table. "Care to explain this?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. Jessica glanced at the box, then back at me, unfazed. "Oh, please, don't act like you've never kept mementos from exes." "These aren't from exes, Jessica. They're from the guys you're screwing while married to me." She shrugged. "What do you want me to say, Brian? That I'm sorry? Because I'm not. I deserve to be happy, and you clearly weren't making me happy." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. There was no remorse, no guilt, just pure selfishness. I knew then that leaving wasn't just the right decision. It was the only decision. After finding that shoebox, I didn't waste any more time. I contacted a lawyer the next day to start the divorce process. I wasn't even interested in fighting over assets. I just wanted to be done with her. The lawyer, Karen, was sharp and didn't mince words. "Brian, from what you've told me, your wife isn't going to make this easy. People like Jessica thrive on control. She'll push back, not because she cares, but because she'll hate losing power over you." And Karen was right. When Jessica got the divorce papers, she exploded. She called me that night, screaming into the phone. "Are you seriously doing this, Brian? You're just going to throw away 6 years of marriage because I wanted some fun? Grow up. It's not just about the cheating, Jessica," I said, staying as calm as I could. "It's about the lying, the disrespect, and the fact that you don't even care about the damage you've done." "You're so pathetic," she spat. "Fine. You want a divorce? Let's see how well you do without me." The call ended with her slamming the phone down, but I didn't feel defeated. If anything, her reaction made me more confident in my decision. Word of the divorce spread quickly among our friends and family. Jessica tried to spin the story, painting herself as the victim. She claimed I was controlling and didn't understand her needs. But the truth has a way of coming out. A mutual friend, Emily, messaged me privately. "Brian, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I didn't want to get involved, but Jessica's behavior has been an open secret. She was bragging about these guys at a party last month. She called them her boy toys. The support I received was overwhelming. Friends, coworkers, even Jessica's sister reached out to say they were on my side. It was a bittersweet relief. I was grateful for their kindness, but devastated that so many people knew what Jessica had been doing while I was clueless. Just when I thought things couldn't get messy, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Kyle. We need to talk about Jessica." Kyle was one of the guys she'd been seeing. My first instinct was to block him, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop the next day. Kyle showed up looking nervous, his tattooed arms crossed as he fidgeted with his coffee cup. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married when we started seeing each other," he said. "She told me you two were separated." I stared at him, trying to process this new information. "And when did you find out the truth?" He sighed. "About a month ago. I stopped seeing her after that. But Tyler, he's still with her. And he knows. He doesn't care." Hearing that stung more than I expected. Jessica hadn't just lied to me. She'd lied to them, too. And one of them was perfectly fine with it. That night, I sat in my empty apartment, replaying everything Kyle had told me. It hit me all at once, the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger. I broke down for the first time since this whole nightmare began. I'd spent years building a life with Jessica, only to find out it was all a facade. I'd loved her, trusted her, and supported her, and she'd thrown it all away like it meant nothing. Max, sensing my distress, climbed onto the couch and rested his head on my lap. It was a small comfort, but it reminded me I wasn't completely alone. A week later, I went back to the house to finalize some paperwork. Jessica was there, lounging on the couch with Tyler, the other guy she'd been seeing. He didn't even look up as I walked in. "Really?" I said, gesturing toward Tyler. "You're not even trying to be discreet anymore?" Jessica smirked. "Why should I? We're getting divorced, remember? What I do is none of your business." I looked at Tyler. "And you're okay with this? Being someone's second choice?" He shrugged, a cocky grin on his face. "She's fun. That's all that matters." It was infuriating but also oddly liberating. This was who Jessica had become, someone who didn't care about loyalty, commitment, or basic decency. And I wanted no part of it. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Jessica kept the house, as I'd agreed, and I moved into a small but cozy apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine and it was peaceful. I started therapy to work through the pain and rebuild my self-esteem. It wasn't easy, but each session helped me feel a little stronger, a little more like myself. Max became my anchor, forcing me to get out of bed on days when I felt like giving up. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. Looking back, I realized Jessica's betrayal taught me some hard but valuable lessons. I ignored the red flags because I wanted so badly to believe in the person I thought she was. I learned that love isn't enough when respect and honesty are missing. To anyone reading this, my advice is simple. Trust your gut. Don't let someone convince you that your instincts are wrong. And never settle for someone who makes you feel like you're not enough. I'm not fully healed yet, but I'm getting there. And for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about the future. A few months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Jessica and her new fling, Tyler, were already on the rocks. Apparently, Tyler wasn't too thrilled about Jessica flirting with other guys. Shocking, right? The guy who didn't care about her being married suddenly had a problem with loyalty. Jessica had moved one of the guys into the house we shared, but rumors started spreading about her partying more than usual and blowing through money like it was nothing. It seemed like the life she'd chosen wasn't as glamorous as she'd made it out to be. I didn't feel satisfaction in her misfortune, well, maybe a little, but mostly I felt pity. She had burned every bridge she crossed, and now she was paying the price for it. One evening, out of the blue, Jessica called me. I stared at her name on my phone for a while before answering. "What do you want?" I said, not bothering to hide my annoyance. Her voice was softer than I'd heard in years. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Brian, for everything." I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to yell at her, to tell her where she could shove her apology. But I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "I don't know why I did what I did. I was selfish and I hurt you. I know I can't take it back, but I needed you to know that I regret it." Her words felt hollow. Maybe she meant them, but they didn't change what she'd done. "Jessica, I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. I'm moving on and you should too." She sniffled like she was about to cry. "I understand. I'm sorry again." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of emotions. The apology didn't erase the pain, but it felt like a final chapter closing. A year after the divorce, my life looked completely different. I had a new job that I loved, thanks to the confidence I'd built in therapy. I started hiking with Max every weekend, and I'd even joined a local dog training group where I met new people. One of those people was a woman named Emily. She wasn't flashy or overly confident like Jessica, but she was kind, down to earth, and easy to talk to. We started as friends, bonding over our shared love of dogs and the outdoors. I didn't expect to feel ready for a relationship again so soon, but Emily was patient and understanding. She never pressured me, and over time, I realized I was looking forward to seeing her more and more. Around the time things started getting serious with Emily, I got another unexpected call from Jessica. She sounded drunk, slurring her words as she rambled about how much she missed me and how Tyler had turned out to be a loser. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me," she sobbed. "Why didn't I see that before?" I didn't feel anger this time, just sadness. "Jessica, you made your choices and I made mine. I've moved on and you should too." She begged me to reconsider, but I stayed firm. Hanging up that call felt like the final piece of closure I needed. Now, looking back on everything, I can see how much I've grown. Jessica's betrayal was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, but it forced me to face some uncomfortable truths about myself. I had spent so much time trying to keep her happy that I'd lost sight of my own needs and boundaries. Emily and I are still taking things slow, but I feel hopeful in a way I haven't in years. For anyone reading this who's going through something similar, my advice is this: know your worth. Don't let anyone convince you that you deserve less than respect and honesty. Surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you. Lean on them when things get tough. Don't be afraid to walk away from something that's hurting you, even if it feels scary. Sometimes the hardest things in life end up teaching you the most. And sometimes they lead you to exactly where you're meant to be. Last week, Emily and I took Max on a camping trip. Sitting by the fire under the stars, with Max curled up at our feet, I realized I hadn't thought about Jessica in weeks. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. And that's when it hit me. Life is about moving forward, not dwelling on what's behind you. Thank you for going through this with me. Subscribe to the channel to not miss new stories.